Good morning. Very fortunate to have Marty Harkin from Leading Teams with me again. How are you, Marty?
I'm good, thank you, Maddie. Limping to the finish line, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very consistent theme at the moment. Hey, thanks for your time again today. A couple of weeks ago, we caught up and we focused primarily on the business side of things, which is where you do a lot of your work. But what I do know is that every business and every family is made up of individuals. And so many of our clients and connections and stakeholders are individuals that play those different roles in homes, in families, in businesses. So I wanted to spend a bit of time today just trying to get 10 or 15 minutes of really good stuff that people can work on once they get energy back and they want to reflect on 2020 and try to make 2021 the best year that they've ever had.
Yeah, love it. And it certainly obviously fits with the work that we do, primarily around teams, and whether that be the different contexts of business or family or, sport or, whatever it might be. But as you say, we know that a team that's high performing is made up of individuals that are also high performing. So I think the timing's really great at this end of the year. Whether it's reflecting and preparing for 21 or whether it's just that getting to the end of what's been a really tricky year. So I think it's really good timing for this discussion.
So before we get into it, what do you see as the major benefits of being a high performing individual, irrelevant of how the team is performing?
Yeah, I think it's the idea, and it adds, when you're a high performing individual, it means that you go home and you can put your head on the pillow at night, knowing that you've done the best that you can do to contribute to someone else or your team's success. I think it also means too that it becomes more, even though there are outcomes of teams and businesses and those types of things which can be reasonably easily measured in some way or another. I think when you're thinking about yourself and reflecting on yourself as an individual and choosing, regardless of what type of team that you're in terms of performance, whether it's a toxic type environment or whether it's in a reasonably or high performing environment, it means that you can get some individual growth out of that and you can get some benefits. So we'd like to think that at the end of a journey of someone working in an environment that is high performing and that does use their culture, if you like, as the foundation for everything that they do. We often talk about the idea of that two things can happen on exit, and one is as an individual that you've left the team or business in better shape than when you joined it. And the other thing is that you can leave a better person. And I think sometimes we kind of overlook that at the, with the rush or the urgency on hitting targets and numbers and meeting KPIs. So I think that the individual aspect's really important.
I do like what you sort of talk about the influence there and whether you leave things better off. I think about, say myself over the next 2 to 4 weeks when I've got more time at home, not just working. That influence is really important because, say, when I go back to work in the middle of, or later in January, and if I've left a trail of destruction around the home and in my life in general, it can be quite detrimental to the whole year.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm, performing well during that period of time as a stakeholder in our business, as a partner, as a dad, all those types of things, I think it makes 2021 get off to a better start.
And I think that's why when we do work with individuals, we look at the business they're in, because that's usually the way that we end up doing some one-on-one work with individuals, through a business, through a team or a client that we're working with. But we actually look at their whole life for exactly the reason that you mentioned. So all of us wear different hats, whether it's, stuff at home, whether it's, stuff in the community, volunteering, whatever it might be, as well as being a member of families and extended families. So we all wear different hats. So I think it just, rather than, kind of limit your opportunity in terms of improvement and getting better and having a great 21 and that type of thing, why wouldn't you, broaden that out to think about all of the different context for context for you as a person. So I love the fact that you're talking about partner and family and dad and all those types of things.
Yeah, I think it's a really good concept for people to think about. double barrel question for you. And I'm happy to sort of air my dirty laundry if you are happy to as well. What are some unproductive behaviors that people may have before we work out how we sort of focus on them and how to work on them? And then we've worked together for a fair period of time. What would you say that some of the unproductive behaviors that I have personally and
Yeah.
how that impacts the people around me?
Yeah, I think I think it's a good time of year to be focusing on those types of questions about yourself. Um, I think, and part of the reason for that is the people are tired at this end of year. It's been a really hard year. So I think the chance to really sit and reflect and figure out, whether you know it already, but figure out what you need to do to refresh and just slow down over the next couple of weeks. But I also think part of that time, and I actually did it this time last year. I remember doing it because I wasn't in great shape at the end of the year. And it was actually a book, it was a change of environment. I went and spent some time with my family, my extended family, as I usually do. Headed down the coast of Torquay, as I have for the last 25 years or nearly 30 years, I reckon, over summer, and spent a couple of weeks with my family. So it was a change environment. I was reading a book at the time that just really helped me reflect on some of those unproductive behaviors that I know that I was doing at that time. Because before then, I reckon I'd certainly put up a shield, was wearing an armor, because I didn't feel like I was good enough at anything at this time last year. And because I felt like that, I was being really critical of everyone else around me. And of course that wasn't helpful. But really what I needed to do was just to kind of take stock, and it was a good solid look in the mirror. So I think it is whatever it is that you need to do, and some questions to kind of explore with yourself. And it's not all looking at the bad stuff. It's just looking at, those really simple questions. It actually doesn't matter what questions you ask. I'll give you a couple in a minute. But if there isn't the want and the willingness to dig pretty deep in yourself, then the process of thinking about all of this stuff, won't be that helpful. You'll get out of it what you put into it. So, it's those questions like, what do I do when I'm under pressure? What do people see me do? And also, it's kind of that the fly on the wall scenario. How do I look when I'm at my best, and how do I look when I'm at my worst? But rather than imagining a stranger or a fly on the wall, actually picture yourself there watching yourself. Because when I was doing that, I was thinking about those scenarios, and I thought, my God, like I can be defensive when I'm hurt, and when I get wounded, I can be defensive, and I'll try and justify why I've done something if I've disappointed someone, because I never intend to disappoint someone, but I just got in this habit of justifying and defending my position all the time. And when I kind of imagined and visualized that, it kind of really hit me as to how unhelpful it was. And so I think there's the bit there around doing your own reflection, best and worst and everything in between. But also, as you've kind of asked, then ask for others' view. Ask what others might think. And the question we get people to explore there is, ask others to give you three words that they would use to describe you, and an area for improvement that they see and recognise. And ask people from all those different roles in your life that we were talking about before. So I remember the day that I was talking to your team about this, and it wasn't long after that you sent me a message with those questions. And I think you were the only one in your team that did that. You actually asked me for my view, and that doesn't get you extra points, but it's just the idea of looking across your network and who will give you the truth. And so I remember being really pleased, proud, all of those things when I actually got your message, because I think it's a reflection on our relationship.
Yeah, and Marty, I think that process for me, I've always felt pretty vulnerable in our. You challenge me quite directly which is not something that I often cope really well with. What are so let's say that I've gone through this process and like we have done and worked out that basis of the personal trademark. How do I then, coming into 2021, how do I bring it to life? And then how do I measure whether I'm sort of living up to my standards or how to improve?
Yeah, I think so what that process will do is, and it should be, to talk a little bit more about the process, it should take a while. So certainly I know, and it really, the 12 months, I've been at leading teams for a long time and done this process, this self audit, we call it, a few times. But, for whatever reason, last year was the best time, the best crack that I had at it, I reckon, because I was really willing to go there. And I had a little journal with me. I don't write in journals regularly, but I had a journal with me. I just found myself reading this book, and it was a Brené Brown book. And there was just lots of stuff in there, lots of questions, and I would just write down stuff as I was thinking about it, and then I would go back and read it. So the idea of this process is that you do have a few cracks at it, whether you write stuff, whether you video yourself, whether you talk and record your voice, however it is that you want to do it. But you go back and you keep thinking. You'll get some themes out of it, particularly if you then get feedback from other people. And the idea of coming up with a personal trademark, like we do help a team come up with a team trademark, is that you identify mostly your strengths. So this process isn't about identifying all of your weaknesses, because that's not helpful. It's just not productive. And why would you stop doing the things that you're really good at and that you see value in, you don't want to let go of, but also others are giving you feedback that, hey, you're really genuine, Mart, and that's something that I've never been able to let go of. It's really, being genuine is important to me. And when I hear it from other people, I think, wow, that's a good marriage there. I'm holding on to that one. So the idea of coming up with a personal trademark, as you know, is, 2/3 of it are strengths and aspirations and great things that you do, and whether they're words or phrases, whatever it is that you want to create. We usually start with words, and we usually get individuals to think of just one area for improvement that's come up as a theme, perhaps in their reflection and in their feedback, and just focus on one area for improvement, but actually turn that into something that's really positive as well. So, for mine, around not feeling like I was good enough, getting a bit defensive and justifying and not open and accepting feedback, I've created something around being grounded. And grounded is a word that maybe doesn't mean anything to lots of people, but it was certainly a word that I kept reading in this book, and I thought, yeah, I really like the sound of that. Kind of attach my own meaning to it, really. But for me, it's just the idea that I'm enough and that I accept myself for who I am. So I know that that's something that I have to keep working on. And like a team trademark, as you know, Matt, like there aren't always measures that are attached to it, but I've got my trademark just here. It's just sitting next to me on my desk. And I've got words and I've got affirmations. So next to the word grounded, it says, I am enough. I accept myself for who I am. I'm respected for that. So they're the affirmations. And they sit here right next to me. I've recorded them as well. They sit here right next to me. So on the drive home, on a flight home, or whatever it is, I'm reflecting on, how did I go against that today?
So what you're sort of saying is that by going through this self-audit, particularly, and do it yourself, then ask for some feedback from others around you, you'll start to create some themes. You might then attach your own meaning to them. But then the aim is that as you start to, I suppose, thin it out a bit to a few words or affirmations, that then becomes your true north.
Yeah.
And the decisions that you make, it may be more conscious as you move through the process. So for you, is it, are the actions and the words that I'm saying, do they align with me being grounded? And that might be self-talk, or it might be the physical words that you're saying, but you can then reflect back on it. And as you continue to do it, it becomes more natural.
And most of the time I will. And the other thing about us at Leading Teams is because we've all been through this process, and particularly through this year, we were challenged at the start of the year to, at the end of 2020, to be better facilitators. And certainly part of that was to, have another look at, reflect on your personal trademark, because we're all in an environment where we live in this space and we talk to our clients about this stuff. I know, or have a reasonable understanding, and can access everyone in my team's personal trademark. So it just means that whenever we get together, whenever I'm on a call, I know what someone's working on individually, and I know that it's certainly about them as being a member of Leading Teams and being the best facilitator they can be. But I know that it's also about them just being better people. And so if I can, going back to the impact that individuals can have, if I can help someone, and I know part of my role in being at Leading Teams is if I can help someone in my team be accountable to and be a better person based on what they've decided that, their personal trademark is, that, I sleep pretty comfortably at night knowing that I can help someone in that way.
Beautiful. And look, just before we finish up, as I've gone through that process, what if I catch myself doing things that aren't in line with what I would like to be doing, or where I feel like I should be? What are those sort of steps to start to rectify it?
Yeah, I think that it's really important, and it's important at this time of year too, just to cut yourself some slack and give yourself a break, and recognise that, hey, there have been some times through this year that maybe I haven't been at my best. So it's not the idea isn't to punish yourself, because that's not helpful. Certainly, as we say to teams, the idea of rewarding good behaviour is going to be helpful in maintaining that behaviour. So the idea of rewarding yourself for the really great things that you do, and how you behave, is important. But when you catch yourself and when you slip, you just make the links. I slipped today, I wasn't at my best. And look, whether that's all you need to do, but having that reference point, as you call it, a true north, or whatever it is that you want to call it, having it nearby, knowing it, so that you can, your eyes are constantly looking at it, and it not only helps guide you, but it also helps you at the other end to review. And, like with any team, like if we do a review with you guys and you kind of say, oh yeah, we've probably slipped a bit on that behavior in our trademark, we take responsibility and we do what we need to do to move on. And it might only need to be a self-reflection. There might be a conversation that has to happen as a result of that, in terms of an apology or or something. But being able to share that with people along the way, I think is part of the magic. It's part of the reward, but it also is part of the accountability, I think, to it as well.
Beautiful. All right, we're going to wind it up, but you didn't mention the name of the book. I'm sure that everyone will have a bit of Christmas reading time. What was it?
It is called I Thought It Was Me. I've got it here. I Thought It Was Me, But It Isn't, by Brené Brown. I think it's one of her older ones, but I read it at just the right time. And
for those that maybe don't have a lot of reading time, I can tell you that there is some good stuff on YouTube from Brené Brown too.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for your time, Marty. Look forward to catching up again in 2021, and hopefully it's been a bit of help for a few people.
I hope so. I hope we can continue these conversations, and look forward to seeing you, Matt, too, after a really good break. Have a good time with Max and Annie and the rest of your family.
Beautiful. Thanks, Marty.
Good on you, mate.
See ya.